الحمد لله الذي هدى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على سيد الرسل وخاتم الأنبياء وعلى آله وأصحابه الذين اجتبى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين يكنزون الذهب والفضة ولا ينفقونها في سبيل الله فبشرهم بعذاب أليم يوم يحمى عليها في نار جهنم فتكوى بها جباههم وجنوبهم وظهورهم هذا ما كنزتم لأنفسكم فذوقوا ما كنتم تكنزون. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: بني الإسلام على 5: شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Expected and honorable guests and attendees, Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us the ability to gather for the sake of Allah to dispense and discharge a huge obligation of deen. One of the very fundamentals and one of the very pillars of Islam, without which Islam and our Iman is not complete. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam within the hadith has mentioned that there are 5 things that make the very foundations of a Muslim, of our Iman. And from those things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions zakah. And zakah, it's very important to understand the fundamental aspect of zakah, the spiritual aspect of zakah, and the jurisprudence and the rulings behind zakah. And to understand how zakah is not a tax but rather an action of worship, an act of worship, and which intentions and which criteria has to be met in order to discharge this zakah. And inshallah, the PowerPoint that we will be sharing is by Mufti Faraz Adam Al-Mahmoudi, who is from the UK. He was actually colleagues with Mufti Abdulmannan as well in South Africa. So alhamdulillah, we will be going through this PowerPoint. Inshallah, we will be discussing many avenues and aspects of zakah. And inshallah, whichever questions that you have, inshallah, you may add it into the comment section, the live comment section. And also, the number will be posted as well, where you can text any questions that you have as well. Now, the very meaning of zakah, the linguistic meaning, if you look at it, is purity, praise, growth, blessing. This is the actual meaning, the lughwi meaning that you will find within the dictionary. And the reason it's called purity, zakah, is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a means of purifying our wealth. That all of the impure wealth that we have, it's as if this 2.5% is what will cleanse our entire wealth that we have and keep us going for the rest of the year. And if that is not said, it's as if our entire wealth becomes contaminated. So that's why within Islam, the Islamic meaning, meaning within the Islamic law is هي تمليك بعض مال جزما عينه الشارع لفقير مسلم لله تعالى. That you give a fixed amount of specified wealth, which we will learn is 2.5%, but there are different categories of zakah as well. And this is given to a needy Muslim for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we find within the Quran, where is zakah, where do we find the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have to discharge our zakah, is directly within the Quran, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. And you will find this numerous times within the Quran. The salah is such a fundamental pillar of Islam, and it's usually always followed by zakah. أَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ أَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. So, establish prayer and give zakah. And also within the hadith, within the sunnah, we find in Bukhari, along with many numerous other ahadith, that أن الله تعالى قد افترض عليهم صدقة في أموالهم تؤخذ من أغنيائهم فترد في فقرائهم. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mandated us to pay our zakah upon their assets, and it is to be taken from the wealthy amongst them and given to the poor amongst them. Now, why do we give zakah? There's different reasons. It's a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we go clockwise from 12 o'clock, that most importantly is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As a believer, if we just have the very mentality within our mind that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells me something, it's a divine command. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does something, when He says something, He is al-Hakim, there's hikmah, there's wisdom, I will fulfill it. That is enough for me. So it's a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It purifies our soul. We already mentioned the impurity aspect, but from greed as well. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that wealth is something that even if Allah gave us the entire khazain, all of the treasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will still want to hold back. We will still want to keep it for ourselves. So that's what, if we look at someone that has more than us, we will always want more. We can become a millionaire, we will want to become a billionaire. We'll become a billionaire, we will want to become a trillionaire. It's a never-ending cycle. So it purifies our soul from greed. That not hold back, no, give back to the community. Give back to others. It promotes circulation of wealth. Islam, the financial system of Islam is so we don't suffer from the 1%. We don't suffer from such a financial standing that some people take it all and many others they suffer. But rather the circulation of wealth is in process. The right of the needy, we are able to fulfill it. It bridges the gap between the affluent and the needy. Those that have been fortunate, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them different avenues, prosperity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them also now the opportunity to bridge the gap between the needy and the fuqara as well. This is very important that we should go out of our circle to tend to those that are in need as well and keep a relationship with both of them. And it also reduces inequality between both as well. Some other virtues we find within the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions severe commands where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the virtues, but at the same time Allah mentions the warnings as well. So when we look at the virtues, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the ayah within the Quran, that the example of those who spend their wealth in the sake of Allah. وَالَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ, those people that spend for the sake of Allah, their example is كَمَثَلِ حَبَّةٍ أَنْبَتَتْ سَبْعَ سَنَابِلٍ, that you plant a seed, and from the seed 7 spikes grow, and from the 7 spikes there is 100 grains within each. So up to 700 times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is multiplying our reward, and then even more if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions another ayah, a warning within the Quran, the وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ, those people that hoard their gold and silver. And gold and silver includes all of our wealth, and hoarding refers to those individuals that keep it and not dispense their zakah upon it. Yeah, it's completely fine to keep gold and silver, but when we do not fulfill our zakah, our yearly zakah, that's what considered to be holding. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them glad tidings of a painful punishment. Obviously this is sarcasm, that these are not really glad tidings for them. This is a painful punishment, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions what the punishment will be as well. The يَوْمَ يُحْمَى عَلَيْهَا فِي نَارِ جَهَنَّمْ, that this gold, the silver, it will be heated for them, and it will be put onto their foreheads. في جباه يوم يحمى عليها في نار جهنم فتقوى بها جباههم وجنوبهم, their sides, their flanks, and وظهورهم, their backs as well. And scholars, they mention the reason for this is because when a person would come to you, he would come begging to you, or she would come begging to you, asking you for something, and the first thing you did from your face, you showed your face, you showed a face that was not polite, you were not happy to give it to them. So you gave an expression that you didn't want to give, you frowned upon them. So that's why it starts off from your forehead, it's the frown. And then you turned away from them. So you showed them your sides, and then you completely turn away, you showed them your backs. So these are the areas that this gold and silver will be molted, it will be burned, and it will be put upon you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell you, this is what you hoarded for yourselves, so whatever you had kept back, now you can taste it. It's all yours. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions how when we give zakah, apparently it seems that the money is going away. But Allah mentions that يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى وَيُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ, Allah destroys interest and gives increase in charities. You will notice that each and every year, why is my zakah increasing? Why am I paying more? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving barakah and blessings within your wealth. And when interest it might seem that I'm actually getting more. Apparently I'm investing $10 into my savings account, and a year later it's $20, it's $30. But within that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put many harm, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take away the barakah from that as well, and it will never seem to be sufficient. And finally, those who spend their wealth by night and day, secretly and publicly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them Himself the reward for these individuals. Now the conditions. Now we're getting into the actual manner, the actual responsibility and criteria and conditions of zakah. because it was important for us to know the spiritual aspect as well. It's important that we know why we give zakah, what is the reasoning for zakah, where is it standing within Islam as well. And now getting more, inshallah, I will try to go through it quickly, because this workshop usually it does take long. So inshallah, I will try to go through it fast, so we don't waste much time, inshallah. Now, what are the conditions of zakah? The first condition is the person has to be a Muslim. If you're not a Muslim, zakah is not liable upon you. You have to be an adult. If you have children, there are children that they have a lot of wealth. They have savings accounts, they have bank accounts, they have college funds that start from a very young age, and it's completely on their name. No one is able to withdraw from it, not even the parents, except for the children. So those individuals, even if they have more than the quantum, the threshold of zakah, they still do not have to give zakah. It's only for adults. And adult, remember, refers to a person that is baligh. In Islam, it's either you're a child or you're an adult. A child means, for a boy, for men, before you had your wet dream, before you had that, before you became baligh, before you attained puberty, that's when you're a child. And as soon as you hit your puberty, you're considered an adult. And for women, it's before they experienced their first menstruation period. So that's what's considered an adult. So even if you're 15 years old, 14 years old, you might have to give zakah if you have the amount that is necessary. You're sane, meaning you're not mentally insane. You do not have anything against any psychological issues or mental issues that takes you out of your senses. Also, owner and possessor of wealth equaling nisab. You must have the amount of wealth that's equal to nisab. And now there's two types of nisab. Nisab will be we will be frequently and recurringly using this word nisab. It basically refers to the amount that you will need to have to give your zakah. Now understand that there's two types of nisab. One is the nisab that makes it necessary. It makes the zakah fard upon you. So that type of nisab that we'll be referring to will be known as the nisab wujub zakah. That the amount that you need to have for zakah to be necessary and fard upon you. And the other type of nisab we'll be referring to will be nisab hirmanu zakah. And that will be the amount of nisab that you need to have for you not to be a valid recipient of zakah anymore. Meaning you might have enough to give zakah, but you will not have enough to accept zakah. And then there is a middle situation as well. That's la ilaha illa wa la ilaha illa, not towards here, not towards there. Meaning you don't have to give zakah, but at the same time you're not eligible to receive zakah. So that's why you need to understand there's both types of nisab that inshallah we will mention. Then the final condition to give zakah is that you need to own the nisab wujub zakah, the necessary zakat to give zakah, that amount of nisab for an entire lunar year. The reason lunar year has been mentioned is because it's very important to understand that a lunar year has less days than a solar year, or the Gregorian year that we're accustomed to, January, February, March. So that's why we must offset our zakah and discharge our zakah according to the lunar year. So the best way to understand this is, before we move on, is nisab is something that becomes necessary upon you when if we go to the next slide and we understand exactly how much is the amount of nisab today. So before in Islam, because there wasn't the paper currency that we have today, before it was obviously gold and silver. And gold, Rasulullah ﷺ had mentioned about gold, how much do you have to give? It was 20 mithqal. As long as you had 20 mithqal, zakah would be necessary upon you. ليس فيما دون 20 مثقال من الذهب صدقة فإذا كانت 20 مثقالا وحال عليها الحول ففيها نصف مثقال. That if you have 20 mithqals, then you have to give half a mithqal. So how much was this mithqal? It's a measurement that's not common today. Basically, each mithqal was 4.7, a little more than that, grams of gold. So today, the necessary amount that you need to have is 87.48 grams of gold, or 612.36 grams of silver. Now, most of us will also have paper currency. We will also have dollars, or whatever country that you're from. Now, it's important to understand that how do we calculate that? So today what we will do is we will take the gold and the silver. and we will take the paper currency, the cash currency that we have, and we will combine everything together, and then we will see if it's according to the amount of nisab. Now, if you only possess gold, then you will use the gold nisab, meaning if you have 87.48 grams of gold, and that comes out today, as in May 16, 2020. As of today, that amount equates to $4,879.34. So that's a very high amount. It's almost $5,000. So if you only possess gold, you will go according to the gold nisab. So if you have anything less than that amount, you don't have to give zakah. You're not liable of paying zakah. And if you possess mixed assets, meaning you have some gold, you have some silver, you have some paper currency as well, cash, and it's equal to 612.36 grams of silver, and that amount equals to $319.93 as of today on May 16. Then you will go according to this value, this amount. So if you have different amounts of cash, silver, gold, everything mixed, and all of that is equal to at least $319.93, then it will be necessary upon you to give zakah. So most of us, we are in the second category. We're in the category where we have to go by the silver nisab. The gold nisab will be for an individual that only has gold, and that is very common for a housewife or a homemaker, that she doesn't really work and she always has jewelry. Women always have jewelry, so they have a lot of gold. So if you evaluate that, the best way, if you want to know how much your gold is, you have no idea, you just know you have a whole bunch of jewelry, what you will do, you will go to your nearest jewelry shop. You will ask them, what's the value of this? How many ounces, how many grams of gold is this? And they will give you the amount. And then you can go to goldprice.org, and it will tell you exactly for each carat of gold, 24 karat of gold, which is 99.99% gold, what is the value of that as of today. So per ounce, it will give you the value. It's 1,000 and something, 1,700 something as of today. And then it will tell you 22 karat gold, which is a little more than 91% gold. What is the current gold value of that? And then it will continue, what is 18 karat gold, 14 karat gold, and it tells you the entire process. So that's what you will do. So it will tell you the terms of ounces, and your jewelry shop will tell you how many grams of gold that you have. Now what you will do is you will, very basic Google math, you will convert it from grams to ounces, and you will use the ounces, and you will convert it into what you have to pay today, and you will pay 2.5% of that. So it's very simple math, that you would just convert it to grams, see if you have at least this much amount of grams in total. And the best way to do it is, you will see that the silver amount nisab today is $319.93. So as long as everything together, when you converted your wealth, say you had 20 grams or 20 ounces of gold, you will take that, you will go to goldprice.org, you will see, you will multiply that, the per ounce price will be $1,700 and something, and you will multiply that by the 20 ounces that you currently have, and it will give you your current gold amount that you have, 18, 20,000, whatever it is. Now that amount is much higher than the $319.93, so yes, you will have to give zakah upon it. So it's very important to understand this. Now there are other individuals, there are different views that mention that even in the situation where you possess mixed assets, you will still go according to the gold nisab. Meaning you will go, only if you have more than $4,879, then only will you have to give zakah. But usually the books of fiqh, they will mention what you will usually give. You will try to give something that is the most beneficial for the fuqara, for the miskin, for the poor people and the indigent people amongst you. Because the purpose of zakah is you're trying to bring the most benefit to them. That's why just keep this in mind throughout the lesson of zakah. Many of the rulings that will be mentioned is because we want to bring the most benefit as possible to the person who is a recipient of zakah, a poor person. Okay? So usually keep the gold and silver amounts in mind, and you can go to many different websites. Even Mufti Faraz's website himself, darulfiqh.com, that you will see on each slide. Even if you go to that, if you just scroll down and you change, it will mention what is the zakat of gold, silver, the meher of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, the meher of Fatimi, the minimum meher, and you just change the currency to US dollars, and it will tell you exactly what it is today. And as long as you have more than that amount, for an entire lunar year, then you will have to offset your zakah. Now, what is the exact cycle of calculating zakah? And inshallah, I will be using today's date, which is May 16, 2020, to explain all of our examples. So the day you own the nisab amount after deducting liabilities, you pencil this Islamic date in your diary. So you wait for yourself to own the nisab amount. So $319.93, you're going to wait till you have at least that much amount. So say today was the first day that I actually reached that amount. Or if you're going with the gold threshold, the first day you own $4,879.34. And the day that happens, you write it down. And write down the Islamic date. Once again, I'm going to emphasize upon that is because you cannot write down the Gregorian date. You cannot write down May 16, 2020. You will have to write down what is the current Islamic date. The current Islamic date as of today within Ramadan is the 23rd of Ramadan. So I will write down Ramadan 23 in the year 1441. Because after one entire year, after the completion of one lunar year, on Ramadan 23, 1442, for that entire year, if I still had that amount of nisab, if I still had that $319.93 for that entire year, then I will be responsible to pay zakah from here onwards forever in the rest of my life. And very important point that I want to mention as well, because a lot of people have this misunderstanding, that if you have $319.93 or more today, as of today, May 16, or I should say the 23rd of Ramadan, and then throughout the year, say in Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, in Hajj season, I had a dip within my wealth. I went down to $50. I went down to $100. Now, this continued all the way until next Ramadan. When it was Ramadan, the 20th of Ramadan, my amount, my bank balance, whatever it was, my total amount of cash went back to $350, $400, or $1,000. However much your money was, it went high again. So when Ramadan 23, 1442 came, I had more than nisab once again. So in that situation as well, you do have to pay zakah. Because you don't look at the fluctuations throughout the year. You only look at the beginning of the year and the end of the year and see if you had that much amount of nisab in the beginning year of the year and the end of the year. As long as you did, every year you will have to continuously pay. It makes no difference whether the wealth increases or decreases during the course of the year. That's what we just mentioned. Now, one lunar year later, meaning in 1442 Hijri, if you possess the current nisab amount after deducting liabilities on that very same Islamic date. Now, deducting liabilities, we will go more into detail for that as well. But liabilities is referring to anything that you have to offset, any bills that you have for the current month. All of these things, we will go into detail inshallah. After deducting those things, I will have, as long as I still have the amount of nisab, I will have to pay zakah on 2.5% of that. And this process will continue unless the wealth equaling is less than the nisab amount, meaning after I give away all my debts and everything, now I have less than the nisab amount, or all of my wealth is lost. So the only time your one lunar year cycle, that date will change, is if you hit rock bottom. If you hit $0, meaning throughout the year, say in Muharram or in Shawwal, whatever the case is, I hit $0, or I lost all of my money, or my bank account just disappeared for some reason, and now I have no money. I went literally zero. Now what will happen is, now your new Islamic date, your new lunar calendar year will start again once you possess the amount of nisab once again. Once you possess $319.93 once again, that's when your new lunar year will start. So say, if it was the 1st of Rajab, which is one of the beginning months of Islam, then I will start my lunar year from there. Now, most people, what they try to do is they try to offset this in the month of Ramadan. And the reason for this, obviously, is because each action is multiplied many times, many folds within the month of Ramadan. So why not try to execute something in the month of Ramadan, offset one of the responsibilities, one of the fundamentals of Islam within the month of Ramadan? Because it will be multiplied. Every fard is multiplied 70 times, and this is a fard. Every nafal, every optional action has been multiplied to the reward of a fard. So that's why in the month of Ramadan, most people try to do this, and I would recommend to do this as well. And the easiest date to keep for your zakat is the first of Ramadan. But usually the question comes upon, but my lunar year calendar, it started on the 1st of Rajab. So now what do I do? How do I make that the 1st of Ramadan? So it's very simple. You will take the 1st of Rajab, so it's Muharram, Safar, Rabiul Awwal, Rabiul Akhir, Jumad al-Ula, Jumad al-Ukhra, Rajab, Shaban, Ramadan. So you wait till the 1st of Ramadan, and within those 2 months, whatever you had at the 1st of Ramadan. So what you're basically doing is you're discharging your zakat a little earlier in your first year, or your second year, third year, whatever year you've been following. Now, if you want to change it to Ramadan, this is what you will do. So say the Nisab lunar year calendar zakat year used to start on the 1st of Muharram. So I will take from Muharram 1st till Ramadan 1st, although this has not been a year yet. What I will do is I will give the zakah for those couple of months. And basically I'm giving my zakat early. I will give the zakat for those months. And now from this year onwards, I'm changing my zakat date to the 1st of Ramadan, or the 10th of Ramadan, 15th of Ramadan, whatever it is. Just try to keep it in mind, because Ramadan is the month that's the easiest to remember as well. That's the easiest lunar calendar year that you'll be able to remember. It's usually most people, if you ask them outside of the month of Ramadan, that which day is it, they won't know if it's Muharram, they won't know if it's Rabiul Awwal, Jumad al-Ula. Usually most people don't know, so that's why the best is to actually remember the day of Ramadan as well. Now the zakatable assets, it's what do you have to give zakat upon? Gold and silver, obviously that's always there. Whatever gold that you have within your house, whatever silver that you have, and this is not just jewelry. This refers to everything. You might have nuggets, you might have coins, you might have the different place within your house, adornments within your house, decorating within your house. As long as it's gold, and actual gold, not plated gold, because plated gold, most of it is not gold, so you don't look at that. As long as more than half of it is considered gold, or aside from the different gems and stuff, that's the portion that you look at. So something, a ring or something that you have which is gold, and there's some different types of rocks on it, you take the rocks away, and just the gold amount, that's what you will be giving zakat upon. So same with any ornaments and anything within your house, any decorations, all of the gold that you have, all of the jewelry that you have, even if you're not using it, zakat will be given upon that as well. And it's very common that you will not be using it throughout the entire year, or you might have it within a bank. And the reason people do this is because they want to keep it for a later date. If possible, they might need to sell it. Obviously, most people, alhamdulillah, never end up selling it. But one of the reasons is we're going to keep it, and just in case, if you want to sell it, the value increases for gold, we will sell it, and we will make a profit. So as long as you have gold and silver, it will always be zakatable. You will always have to give zakat upon that. Cash. Whatever cash that you have, so this is including your bank balance. You will check how much money you have within your bank balance. Your piggy bank that you have, your savings that you have on the side, you will include all of that. You will include the money that you have, buried, hidden from the husband or hidden from the wife that you don't want to know. That cash you will have to include as well. Everything that you have, any cash that you have that's within your house, within your hand, on the day of your zakat due date. So we're going to go with the 1st of Ramadan. So on 1st of Ramadan, I had any cash, however much I had, that's how much I have to give a zakat upon. And another point to understand is you will only have to look at the 1st of Ramadan. You don't have to worry about how much you had throughout the year. All you have to worry about is the 1st of Ramadan, how much money do I have? Because there's a huge misunderstanding that the entire year has to pass on every amount of wealth that I have. And that's a huge misunderstanding, because the Hawlana hold that ruling of 1 year passing on zakah is only for nisab. That ruling is only for you to have that amount of money for one entire year, for it to be necessary and further upon you to give zakah. Then after that amount you don't have to worry about. After that, all you have to worry about is your lunar day. Islam has made it very easy. They just look at Ramadan first, check all the gold and silver that you have. Forget what happened throughout the year. You might have lost some jewelry. You might have been swimming, and the expensive engagement ring that you had gotten, that was $10,000, it went down the drain. You lost it. You're not getting it back. You don't have to give zakat upon that in Ramadan first, because you no longer have that. That's all you have to worry about. It could be 2 days before Ramadan first, you got engaged, you were gifted this extremely expensive $20,000 ring. You've only had in your possession for 2 days, but you will still have to give zakat upon it, because you only look at that day, Ramadan, first. After you had hit that nisab year, after you had hit that lunar year, now the only thing you look at is that Ramadan first day. And as long as you have whatever you have in your possession, you will give zakat according to that. So you will take the gold amount, you will take the silver amount. Then I will check whatever cash bank balance I had, and for Ramadan first. Even if you're delaying it, if you're giving it today, you're waiting on Ramadan, the 23rd of Ramadan, waiting for Al Firdaus Foundation to have their Fiqh of Zakah series. So after that, I make sure that I'm giving my zakah properly. So today I will be offsetting my zakah. I have the correct intention and everything while I'm giving it out. So today you won't look at the date today. You will look at how much money you had on the 1st of Ramadan, and that's the date you will look at every single year. So even if it's something that happened 2 days later, 2 days earlier, you don't look at any of that, because this is very common. A person sells a house, and now they have $500,000 with them, $300,000 with them. If you're in Bridgeview, the houses are expensive. You have $400,000 with you, and you just sold the house, and you were about to buy another house 2 weeks later, a month later. But guess what? The 1st of Ramadan came, and that amount of wealth is within your hand. As long as that is within your hand, you will have to give 2.5% of that. And you should do this happily, because it's an obligation. It's a worship of Allah. The more you give, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you. And Allah will put barakah in your wealth, and you will see that it's only increasing every year. Because it's a clear ayah within the Quran. And this is something, it's the hikmah of Allah that we will not understand. The business stocks, any zakatable assets on business stock, whatever inventory that you have, whatever, if you own a gas station, anything that you see within the gas station, everything that you see, you will have to value that. You will have to evaluate that and see the selling price, not the price that you bought it with. Once again, the reason for that, the reason you don't go with the purchase price is you're always trying to do anfa' lil fuqara. We're always trying to do something that is the most beneficial to the fuqara, the people that are needy and the destitute. So you will check what is your selling price, and you will add all of that up, and whatever the inventory is, you will have to give zakat upon that. Or you have a warehouse, you might have pallets and pallets of inventory. You will check the selling price on all of that, and you will include that into your zakah. Then agricultural produce, if you're a farmer, if you have crops, you have to give zakah on that as well. You have to give ashar on that. Animals and livestock, if you're a person that you're a shepherd, you have many animals, you have many cattle, you have many cows, whatever the case is, then you have to give zakah on a portion of that as well. Inshallah, we will go into details of all of this as well. Non-zakatable items. Now, this is also important to know. You might be an individual that has been given zakah on certain things that you don't have to give zakah upon. So for you, alhamdulillah, that's a great day for you. But at the same time, it shouldn't be a great day, because it's you were doing a worship, you were doing it for the sake of Allah. But alhamdulillah, now you'll have a better savings, you have a bigger savings, so you'll be saving, alhamdulillah. So what are some non-zakatable assets? Any jewelry besides gold and silver. Keep this in mind. Jewelry is in a lot of different forms. So anything other than gold, so this includes white gold, anything other than gold, white gold, and silver, there is no zakah upon that. Diamonds are very expensive. Rubies are very expensive. Emeralds, sapphires, these are expensive. But there's no zakat upon them. Because in Islamic terminology, they're just considered ahjar. They're considered just rocks. And in rocks, there's no zakah. So alhamdulillah, if you have jewelry, you have rocks, you have a diamond ring, you have an emerald ring, whatever the case is, any type of jewelry, it could be a necklace, it could be a bracelet, any of those things, as long as it's for personal use, you do not have to give zakah upon that. It's a different situation if you have a jewelry shop and you're actually a seller, because now these are not for personal use, these are actually for the intention of resale. Keep this in mind, anything with the intention of resale, anything that you purchase with the intention to sell it, then there will always be zakah upon that. Okay? So the second thing, your cars. You might have 10 cars parked in your driveway, that's fine. You do not have to give zakah upon it. What is the exception? The exception is if you're a dealer. You're a person, you bought, or you're not even a dealer, you bought the car to sell it. Your intention was for resale, you will have to give zakah upon that. So yes, if you have 500 cars in your lot and you're a dealer, you will have to check the selling price of all of that, and you will have to give 2.5% of that. because now that's your inventory. So you will have to give zakah upon your inventory. But for the rest of us that just have cars for personal uses, even if it's you have a luxury car just for those summer days, you have your Lamborghini, you have your family car, you have the SUV, you have your daily car to save your gas upon, you have your Prius, you have your electric car, you have your Tesla, whatever the case is, it could be 5, 6, 7 cars. There's no zakah on any of those, because those are all personal use. Those are hawaija asliya, those are personal needs that you need, and you will not give zakah upon that. Properties, it doesn't matter how many properties you have. You could have 10, 20 different properties. You could have it within this country, you could have it in other countries as well. And all of these properties you have, it could be for a source of income, but the intention was not for resale. Yes, if your intention you're in real estate, your intention, the only reason you purchase the property is for you to sell it off completely, then you will have to give zakah on that. But if your intention was just for a lease, if your intention was, I'm purchasing this entire building, which was $500,000, and now what I want to do is I want to give it off for rent. So that way I have the second-hand income, I have this passive income. Every year, every month, I have this monthly income coming in. I will have 3, 4 different tenants living in this area, and they will be giving me rent on a monthly basis. So the entire property that costs $500,000, you don't have to give zakah on it. The only zakah you will be giving is upon the income that you're generating from your tenants. So if it's $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month, that's all that you will be giving zakah upon, not the 500,000 building that you purchased. So any properties that you have for yourself, it could be even vacation homes within the Bahamas, within the Caribbean, you don't have to give zakah upon that unless you literally purchase it for the sake of resale. Electronic appliances, your cell phone, your iPhone, your Samsung S9, S10, you have your iPad, you have your laptop, any electronic appliances, your router, whatever it is that you have within your house, none of those things you have to give zakah upon. Once again, the exception is if you have an electronic appliances store, you're selling these things, then you have to give zakah upon it. Household appliances, everything that you see within the house, look around you, you have expensive sofas, you have expensive furniture, you have expensive windows, whatever the case is, your entire house itself, all of these things you do not have to give zakah on. Why? Once again, because these are daily necessities. Even if you're barely using it, even if you have 5 vacuums, it doesn't matter. Those are all household appliances. Even if you're getting something way above what you need, that's a separate masala, that's a separate issue of should you do that or not. But as in terms of zakah, you don't have to give zakah upon that. Anything that you see within your house other than gold and silver that are just daily, day-to-day needs, you do not have to give zakah upon that. Once again, the only exception is if you have couches, furniture and stuff for the intention of resale, you want to sell it, that's the only time that you'll be giving your zakah. Now gold, silver and cash, let's look at some of the things. If you check the slides, you will see that the zakatable assets, gold and silver for personal use, as we just mentioned, you will give zakah upon. Any gold and silver that you have within the house, within white gold as well, on the gold content, you will be giving zakah on that. Any cash in hand that you have in the bank, the coins, the notes, the Kruger coins that you have, anything that's gold, you will have to give zakah upon that. Yes, if it's gold plated, because majority of that is not really gold, you will not be giving zakah upon that. Then we go to zakah on business stock. Now, before we get to the business stock, I just want to make sure everyone understands zakah from a personal standpoint. So, just a very quick recap is if you have zakah, let's go by the Ramadan first day once again. On the first of Ramadan, we'll take an example. I hit $319.93, and by the next year, Ramadan first, I still had that amount at least $319. It could be more, $500, $600. But I at least had that much amount. And once again, we're not going to look at how much we had, the dips that we had throughout the year. It could have went to $50, it could have went to $25, as long as we didn't hit rock bottom. The only time we look at the nisab amount, $319.93, is only and only when we're looking at when we first attained that amount, and as long as we still have that amount at the end of one full lunar calendar year. Now, as long as we had this, now what do we do every year? What do we do in the lunar year 1442, 1443, 1444, 1445? We don't worry about the amount throughout the year. All we have to look about is on the Ramadan first of that day, how much do I have, and give zakah according to that. Because just think about it for a moment. Because this is a huge misconception that you have to and all of your amount of wealth 1 year has to pass. Think about it for a second. That does it really make sense? Is Islam really that difficult? That say I was gifted this jewelry from my husband. Then it was my anniversary, he gave me more jewelry. And my in-laws, they gave me some more jewelry on the day of Eid. And later on, I also got a gift from my brother, some more jewelry. Now, is it really plausible? Does it really make sense that you have to keep the track of 1 full year and all of those jewelries? It will drive you nuts. That you have to calculate each and every one. That okay, this one I got on the 1st of Ramadan, this one I got on the 27th of Rajab, this one I got on the 2nd of Dhul Hijjah, this one, it's going to drive you crazy. You're going to have to write everything down, and even after that, you will have to remember it. Once you lost the paper, you're done for. So this is why it makes it very difficult. Or say, many people, they live paycheck to paycheck. For them, what will they have to do? They will have to make sure that the amount that I received this month, or this week, or bi-weekly, or however you get paid. Say I received $2,000, or say I received around $4,000, and I saved $1,000. Now you will have to make sure that an entire year passes till next year until I give my zakah, which will make it very difficult because you will have to do this every month. Every time you get your paycheck, now you're going to be like, okay, now I got my paycheck in February. Now let me look at the Islamic date. The Islamic date today is the 8th of Sha'ban. So I'm going to make sure the 8th of Sha'ban in the year 1442, I have to give the zakah on this. It becomes extremely difficult. And Islam doesn't make it difficult upon you. What does Islam say? Don't worry about it. Even if you went $100,000 above how much you needed in the middle of the year, by the end of the year on Ramadan 1st, you just had $20,000, pay on your $20,000. This is to make it easier upon you. So Islam doesn't look at it, even if you went really high throughout the year, or even if you went really low throughout the year, as long as you didn't hit rock bottom $0, then you will just have to give upon the 1st of Ramadan. Hopefully you're understanding this. Then we're moving on to our business stock. So once again, the personal items we calculate, we add, we check goldprice.org, we check the gold amount, how much is the value of that in dollars. We check the silver amount, we check what's the value of that in dollars. We check all of our cash amount, we check the bank balance we had on the 1st of Ramadan, and we add all of these together. So for example, say gold we had $2,000 value, silver we had $500 value, and my cash I had $10,000 value. So I will take the $10,000, I will take my $2,000 gold, so that's $12,000, and my $500 silver, so that's $12,500, and I will give 2.5% of that. Understand? So this is what I will be giving zakat upon on Ramadan 1st. Now moving on to our business stock. And this is important to understand because this could be, we might have invested in Robinhood, we might have invested on our business stocks, shares, it could be just our normal business inventory, any of these things. What do we have to give zakah upon within our business? So commodities refers to those items purchased with the intention of resale. Remember, anything that you purchase for resale, it could be the most common thing, but your intention was to sell it, you have to give zakat upon it. And obviously this is as long as you had more than your nisab already. You had more than the quantum, the threshold, $319. This is above and beyond that. So even if you bought books just to sell it, you have to give a zakat upon it. You bought clothes to sell, you have to give zakat upon it. If it's clothes just for personal needs, you don't have to give zakat upon it. Even if it's your wedding dress that costs $3,000, you will not have to give zakat upon that because it wasn't for resale. Yes, if you bought it to sell once again to someone else, your intention was to make some profit, then you have to give zakat upon it. Zakah is compulsory on one's business stock. Anything that you have within your business stock inventory, you have to give zakah upon that. However, that business stock that you have that's used not for resale, it's used just to help you with your business. Is the machinery that you have, the forklift that you have, the dolly that you have, these things that you have just to help you, the different laptops and devices that you have to make it easier for you to collect funds from others, from your customers. All of these things are just there not for resale, but just to help you in your business. The iMacs that you have, the computers that you have, all of those you don't have to evaluate that. Those you don't give zakah upon. Zakah is just on anything that you have, the inventory that you have for resale. Zakah will be calculated according to the retail price of the goods. So once again, understand, you're not going to calculate your zakah according to how much you purchased it for. So you might have a warehouse and you might have pallets and pallets of Coke and pallets and this is Coca-Cola I'm referring to, pallets and pallets of that, pallets and pallets of shirts, pallets and pallets of beauty art items, you're not going to look at how much you got it for. You will look at how much it will be if you were to sell it today, and you will, if the price of that entire warehouse or your entire business is $300,000 retail price, you will take $300,000 and you will give 2.5% of that. So zakah is not compulsory on real estate purchase with the intention to lease out. We already mentioned this, that if you purchased real estate, you purchased a building, a property, and your intention was not to sell the property. Your intention was just to lease it out, so you get money from your tenants. So the only zakah you give is from the income that you're generating, not on the entire property. Unless you're actually purchasing the property to sell the entire property, then you have to give 2.5% of the entire property. One will add the value of gold, silver, cash, and the total value of goods and give 2.5% of zakah. Once again, this is things that have been made very easy. You just evaluate the cash value of all of that on Ramadan first. You're not going to look at what the gold price was when you first purchased it. You're not going to look at what the gold price was when it was first gifted to you. You will just look at what is the value of it today on the 1st of Ramadan and give zakah according to that. Add all of those up and just give one zakah amount. Now, other things in business, if you have a partnership, you have a 50-50% partnership, or you have a sleeping partner, there's a 20% partner, another 20% partner, and then you have a 60% active partner. So each partner is responsible for their percentage of share. So say the $300,000 inventory that we just mentioned, that if the entire inventory of your business is $300,000, so out of these $300,000, each partner, if it's an active partner that possesses 60% of the business, he will be responsible to give 60% of the $300,000, 2.5% of the 60%. A sleeping partner that's only has a share of 20% of the business, it's their responsibility to give 20% of the entire $300,000. Yes, they can always tell the business partner that you could take out my amount from the business and you can give it for me as well. But the intention has to be there. This is very important, that in terms of zakah, the intention is necessary. If it's your children, if it's your wife, if it's your husband, if you're giving the zakah for them, you need their intention. You ask them, can I give, you have this much amount, you have more than the amount of zakah, can I offset your zakah for you? You can even do it from your own wealth. You don't have to use their wealth. You can do it from your own wealth, alhamdulillah, but you need the permission. Or at the very least, they should at least be aware that you're giving their zakah. Why? What is the reason? Because who is the zakah mandatory upon? Is it upon you? Is it upon you as a parent? Is it upon you as a spouse? Or is it upon them? The zakah is wajib upon that individual. In the very beginning of zakah books, they mention الزكاة واجبة على الحر المسلم البالغ العاقل إذا ملك نصابا ملكا تاما وحال عليه الحول. So as long as this criteria is being met, the zakah is necessary upon those individuals. As long as they have become baligh, you might consider them to be children. They're only 14, 15, 16 years of age, but within Islam they're not considered children anymore. So that's why it's their responsibility. But yes, as a parent, you would always, many parents would like to give it for their children, but you will at least need to ask them, even if they have a savings account, and obviously I'm not referring to those savings account in banks that generate interest, because that's haram, that's a different issue. But they might have a checking account, any college funds that they might be saving up for. So you can let them know that, these are your funds, but we're saving it for your college. Can I give zakat on you? I will give it from my wealth, but can I give it? Or you can even give it from their wealth if you want. But the intention has to be there from their side. And then you're just an agent that is offsetting their zakat responsibility. That's why if you never tell them, if you just do it, and all the years they're not even aware that it's being offset, that means their intention was never made. So it's as if they were never giving their zakat. Now, the other thing is, how do you evaluate your business stock? So any finished goods that you have, goods that are ready to be sold, they're in their finest form, you will check your sale price, meaning how much you're selling it for. And any unfinished goods, they're still like raw, they can still be finished, you have wood, you can still make it into furniture, whatever the case is. So for those items, you will just evaluate the market price. So what is the difference between a sale price and a market price? A perfect example, especially in the situation that we are in today, is, for example, tissue paper. Okay, you're selling tissue paper. Now, the sale price, how much you're selling it for, is probably $100 per pack. But The market price, the normal price is probably just $20, $15, $20. So that's the difference in the sale price and the market price. Then some common transactions. People ask many questions. Do we have to give zakah on stocks? Do I have to give zakah on my 401k? Do I have to give invested the 401ks and invested 401ks? So these are common transactions that people ask questions about. So when it comes to ijara and diminishing musharaka schemes, these are very famous schemes within Islamic banking. The best way to purchase a house or anything for that matter, even a vehicle or anything, the best manner to purchase them is if you are able to purchase it completely with your wealth. And obviously most of us will not have that wealth. If you can, alhamdulillah, that's the best. If not, the second best manner is that you take a loan. You take a qarda hasana, you take a loan from someone where there is no interest. You gather some of your friends, they trust you, your family members, they trust you. You take 20,000 from each, 50,000, you tell them, I will pay you back. There will be no interest, but I need to purchase this house. And you gather $200,000, $300,000, and you purchase the house in that manner. The third, if you're not able to do that as well, people are not trusting you with that much amount of wealth, then the third best manner is if you are going to take a loan or a mortgage from the bank anyways. If you're already, once again, if you're already taking a loan or a mortgage from conventional banks, then you need to understand that it's something that is haram because it has interest. That conventional banking, they accrue compound interest or even fixed interest rates on each and every transaction. So that's why when you're buying a $300,000 house, but you're doing it through a bank, a conventional bank, there's interest that's being added upon on a monthly basis, or depending on however the bank is. And you're paying much more than the $300,000, which is interest, and it's not permissible within Islam. So if you are taking it from a conventional bank anyways, then you should definitely start doing your research upon Islamic banking, which is the more halal manner, the halal method where many scholars have given permissibility for this. So Islamic bankings, within our times, there are many Muslim scholars on the board of Guidance, UIF, even Devon Bank or Devon Bank. These are banking. These are Islamic bankings. Islamic banking means they're banks that give the Islamic banking schemes. They know what the Islamic manner of permissibility is. They know that Muslims do not allow interest, so they allow different avenues that will let you purchase these things. And I don't want to go into details, but mainly, if you have a house from ijara or diminishing musharaka schemes, these are not considered as a debt. And the reason for that is because it's not really a loan. It's diminishing musharaka is more like you're both partners within the house, and now each and every month you're purchasing a share from the bank. So it's as if the bank has 95% of your house, you have 5%, and every month you're buying 5% more share of your house. So your house is becoming from 5 to 10%, then 15%, then 20%, and the bank's percentage is just going lower. So that's not really a debt. There's no future payments at all. It can be deducted, that you can deduct from your zakatable assets. So what does that mean? You have $20,000, and at the same time, you have a ijara or a dimension musharaka scheme. So you do not take out your monthly expenses for the entire year from that. You're not going to say, I have to give the bank $30,000 by the end of the year, so now I don't have to give any zakah. And we will go more into detail about, there's different types of debts, so we'll go more into detail with that as well. Now another common transaction, deposits. Money deposited for safekeeping or giving to another party for guardianship is zakatable. Understand this. I gave my money, I don't trust myself because I'm the clumsiest person on earth. I know that I cannot withhold my zakah, so withhold my money. So I have $5,000, I'm still a kid, I'm only 15 years old, and I'm like, I needed to give to someone for safekeeping. I told my parents, can you please hold on to this? Or I went to India, Pakistan, Palestine, Yemen, and I met someone there, and I'm interested in one of the properties there. I have my friend living there. I told him, I want to purchase this property, but only if it goes under $40,000. So I want you to hold my $40,000, $50,000. Just hold it for me, and if it goes under that amount, then I want you to purchase it on my behalf. So now those $40,000, $50,000, although the person is holding it for you, it's in their guardianship, it's still your money. So you still have to give zakat upon that. You cannot deduct that from your total zakah. Down payments. Important to understand, when you make a down payment, when you purchase a house, when you purchase a vehicle, they might tell you put $3,000 down, or depending on what you're purchasing. Now, when you put the down payment down, are you the malik of it anymore? Are you the owner of that wealth anymore? No, because it's not your wealth anymore. Now the ownership has transferred to the other person. So the purchaser is not the owner of the funds forwarded in a down payment. So that money is given as a deposit. So you don't give zakat on it anymore. It's not your money anymore. So why would you give zakat on it? The same thing with insurance premiums. That when you give your insurance, there's no zakat payable upon that as well. Benefits, many benefits that you receive, child benefit, child tax benefits, social security benefits, all of this, because it becomes your wealth, the money is being given to you. Because when you possess any of these benefits and it becomes your wealth, you will have to give zakah upon it. Because whenever it's considered yours, that's the main thing you look at. Will it be considered yours? Do you have access to it in a manner that you can actually utilize that wealth? If yes, then yes, you have to give zakat upon it. Debt receivables. That means that you have to receive. Now, like I mentioned, there's 2-3 different types of debts. The strongest debt is the type of debt that you know you will get it back almost 100%. So debt arising from forwarding loans or outstanding invoices. You run a business, you give services every day, you're running True Green, it's spring, you're going to different lawns and you're invoicing all of your customers. You know most of these customers, they pay you. So what do? You know this is a strong debt. You will be receiving your money by the end of the month, so you will add that to your zakat amount because this is a strong debt. Or you lent it out for a small amount of time. It's a short-term loan. You give it out for just 1 year or just a few months. You know the person 100% will pay you back. You will have to add that to your zakat amount. Even if you lent $5,000 to someone and you currently are holding $2,000, $20,000 on the first of Ramadan, you will add that $5,000, so you will be giving zakat and $25,000 because it's a strong debt. You know you will be receiving it back. It is best to add strong debt receivables to one's total assets and discharge the zakat yearly. Even if you don't get it by the end of the year, the end of the second year, the person might give it back to you. The end of the third year, the person might give it back to you. So that's why it's better that you just add it to your zakat every year. Because even if you didn't give zakat upon that $5,000 I lent to someone else, so 3 years later when they give it back to you, you will have to give zakat on the 3 years that you missed. So because you have to give it anyways, just to make it easier upon you, it's just better to add it on your zakat every year. Now, that was a strong debt. Now we go to a weak debt. What's a weak debt? This refers to receivables arising without an exchange of tangible goods. Someone owes you money, but there was nothing tangible, nothing that you can touch that was exchanged in return. So an employee, they worked for you. So they gave you services. They didn't give you anything that you can touch. It's not tangible. You cannot touch it. So this is a weak debt. Now the employer is saying, I'm not going to pay you money. Now you as an employee, you want to give zakah. Now you're wondering, do I give zakah on that amount? My employer didn't give me money for the entire year. MashaAllah, this person was working for an entire year and was satisfied with that. And he's like, the total amount he's supposed to owe me is $20,000, $30,000. Now, it's unpaid wages. Do I have to give zakat on that? That's the question. So, zakat will not be compulsory on a weak debt receivable until and unless one gets a receipt of the asset. Because you're not sure if the person will give it, it's a weak debt, and there was nothing exchanged in return as well, you will not give zakat upon it until you actually receive it from your employer. And unpaid rental for a landlord, you're a landlord, your tenants are not giving you money. Now you don't know if they will ever give it because there was nothing tangible that was exchanged. You have outstanding mahar, you have mahar payment, dowry that has to be paid. This is also something that nowadays, the amount of mahar is just ridiculous. It makes it very difficult for a person to get married. $20,000, $50,000, $100,000. They mentioned, I will give you this much mahar, but after they got married, they never gave it. Now the wife, she's just suffering. Will I ever receive that money? It's been 20 years since we've been married, but we haven't gotten any. I haven't gotten my mahar. Do I have to give zakah on the $50,000? Then the answer is no until you receive it, because it's a weak debt. Nothing was exchanged, nothing tangible was exchanged, or outstanding bequest payment, meaning from wiratha or inheritance. Zakah is not compulsory on such a debt for the previous years it was outstanding, because it will become too much. If the mahar was $50,000, finally you received it, you were never sure if you were going to get it as well. You probably thought you were never going to get it. The employer, because he had the authority over you, you probably thought you were never going to receive it. So all of the previous years, you don't have to give zakah on that. Understand and remember that the strong debt, because you knew almost 100% that you will be receiving it back, you will have to give the zakah for the previous years, because it's as if it was almost within your ownership. You knew that you had access to it. You knew most likely you were getting it back. Any invoices for your customers throughout the year, throughout the month, all of those things are included. And the final type of debt, we had the strong debt, we had the weak debt, and now we have the bad debt. What's the bad debt? There's two situations. One person, he owes you money. He knows, he acknowledges it. He's like, I know I owe you $100,000. Okay? But what does he do? He knows there is no paperwork. He knows that you didn't write anything down. When you gave $100,000, he knew, you're a very pious person. Or actually, I shouldn't say pious person, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says in the Quran, the longest ayah in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا تَدَايَنْتُمْ بِدَيْنٍ إِلَى أَجَلٍ مُسَمًّى فَاكْتُبُوهُ. That if you're going to give any loan payment or anything, write it down. Because documents are very important. Even if it's your best friend, just write it down. When it comes to financial matters, you always do everything by the book. You write everything down. And so this person, he thought you were gullible. I know I give you $100,000, but what are you going to do about it? You have no documents. You cannot prove that I owe you that much. You can't hold me liable for it. You can't take me to court. So guess what? I'm not going to pay you. Okay? The other situation is the debtor denies existence of the debt. He says, I don't even pay you. What are you talking about? I gave that $10,000 back. What are you talking about? You never gave me $10,000. So when they deny the existence of the debt, it cannot be established as well, because you have no paperwork for this person. There's no zakat on this as well. So these are the two situations that you will not be giving zakah as well, at all. Then debt liabilities. Now understand, one is the receivables. So this is everything that you have to calculate zakat upon. So when you're adding all of your amount for zakah, we added the gold, we added silver, we added cash, receivables, people that will be paying you back, the strong debt. All of these things you will have to add to the amount of wealth that you have to pay. Now we're going to talk about liabilities, meaning things that you can subtract from the amount. So say everything together, your gold and everything came to $25,000. Now, can you subtract anything from that? Yes, you can. There are liabilities you can subtract, and that's what we will cover now. So now there are short-term liabilities and there are long-term liabilities. A short-term liability is the total amount of short-term liabilities will always be deducted when calculating one's zakat. So anything that will be paid, you have to pay within the lifespan of 1 year. Within the term of 1 year, you know that you will have to give. You owe someone $100, $1,000, and you're planning to pay him back right after Eid. It's just like a month or something, and you know it will be gone by like the month, or for sure by the end of a year. You can deduct that $1,000 because it's a debt upon you, and you have to get rid of it. You know it's going to be out of that $25,000 very soon. But on the other hand, you have long-term debts. Usually they span over a few months or even a few years. And the amount one needs to pay in the course of 1 year will be subtracted from one's gross assets. Now let's understand this. This is very important to understand. A lot of people ask this question. A long-term debt, nowadays, people live their lifestyle literally on loans. That's what the life is coming towards. That a person, you have a choice to purchase a car, but the person will not purchase a car for $30,000. They will lease the car. They will be paying monthly payments. Okay, they will lease the car, and you have a debt upon you for 24 months, 36 months, 39 months, 48 months, any of those. Or you're financing the car. You have a debt upon you for 60 months, 72 months, or 48 months. So now that's a long-term debt. Or you're financing your house. You have to pay off your house in a matter of 5 years, in a matter of 8, 9 years, or 10 years. Now these are long-term debts. So what do? If you deduct that entire amount, you will never be giving zakah. In fact, most of the world will not be giving zakah. Because even the rich and the wealthy, they live the same type of lifestyle. They might have a very high income. That they might be making $300,000 a year. They might be making even more than that. They can be making a 7-figure income a year. They could have a really nice Amazon business. They could be making a 7-figure income. But what do? What kind of lifestyle do they live? Nowadays, a lot of people, they live their lifestyles above their means. So although they have $1 million, they will live in a $5 million house, and they will be giving installments. Every year, every month, they're giving, a couple $1,000s every year to pay that off. Same thing with the car. You can buy. You might be an average person. You might even be a poor person. I know certain people like this that you barely have money. It's only 10,000-20,000 that you have, but you will buy $100,000 car to show others. And the reason you can afford that is because you just have to pay monthly payments. You know that your monthly income is $2,000. My car costs $1,000 a month. I can afford that. So now these are long-term debts. If you just include everything, $50,000 will always be more than how much you have. So in that situation, you don't deduct the entire amount. And in fact, these long-term debts that are usually huge, scholars mentioned that you will only deduct 1 month, the current month that we are within. So if it's the month of Ramadan, you will only deduct your bills, any bills that have been invoiced, any bills, your night core bill, your comment bill, your water bill, your vehicle bill, your finance bill, your house bill, all of those bills you can deduct for the current month. So when it comes to long-term debts, that's what you will do. A lot of scholars, they go with this opinion. So if I had $25,000, but my car payment was $500, I would deduct that. My monthly rent for the house I'm living in is $1,000, $2,000, I can deduct that. My comment bill this month was $110, I will deduct that. My Nicor bill was $80, I will deduct that. All of these monthly bills that have been invoiced, I can deduct those things. Okay? Now, debts are deductible. We mentioned most of these things. Going on to the next slide. Other things, outstanding bills that you have not been paid for, utility bills, we mentioned this, the current month, you can deduct those from your invoice. It says in parentheses, not future bills, because this is not referring to the bills that we might have for the rest of the year. You know, I made a 12-year contract with AT&T, with Comcast, or something that I might use the services, I might not even use it. It's a long-term bill, it's a long-term loan or financing. I will not be deducting any of that. Goods purchased on credit, you know, I have good terms with other businesses. I received the goods from them, an entire truckload, and they gave me terms, net 15% terms, or 15 days terms, 30 days terms, 45 days, 60 days. Now, I have received the goods, but I have not paid for them yet. And I know that within that time period, I have to pay for them. And most of the time, the standard business practices, you usually do pay them. So you can deduct that from your business as well. If you purchase an entire truckload from Sam's Club, from Costco, or any other business, and it's an entire truckload, the total was $20,000, and your business is $30,000, you can deduct the $20,000 if you know you will be paying it off by the end of the month or at the end of the terms. Unpaid dowry to one's wife, assuming one intends to pay this during the year. The only time you can deduct this, once again, is if you know you will be paying it off within this month or very soon, not if you're a person that has been delaying it for the past 15-20 years. And that's very bad practice, especially with your marital relationship as well. Personal loans that you know will be repaid to you within a year, you can deduct that. Commercial loans, on the other hand, we just mentioned, bank loans and stuff, that's something that you will only just deduct, if possible, just the current month. The slide says 1 year because usually the reason it says year is because usually the standard practice used to be that a person would hate debts. The Islamic method is you should not try to have any debts upon you. Always try to make yourself debt free. Always try to live within your income. Always try to live according to something that you know that you can afford. And I'm not going to give you financing tips, but many different individuals are out there. They will tell you how much percentage to put into your savings, how much percentage should your car payment be, and these are things you should keep these things in mind and try to only give according to how much that you can actually afford. Now, shares, even if it's stocks, there's different types. One is you can buy a stock to resell, and I'm not going to the halal and haram portion of stocks. There are halal stocks, there are haram stocks. If it's a haram stock, if it's a stock, it's a complete haram business. They manufacture alcohol. It's completely haram. You shouldn't even be investing in those stocks at all. And if you are, then you will only be giving a zakat on the initial investment that you had given, and everything after that, any profit that you're making, you should just completely dispense of that without the even intention of zakat. You should just give it to the poor without any intention of reward. Just get rid of it. So that's for if you have like haram investments. But if you had any form of halal stock, the reason a person usually will invest in stocks. One is either to sell it, to be in the trade practice, buy and sell the stocks, and the other situation will be you purchase it, so you generate a monthly dividend, a yearly dividend, whatever the company does, and your intention is a passive income. You're actually holding on to it. So both of them have different business practices, different zakah rulings. Because we mentioned anything you purchase with the intention to sell, there will always be zakat upon that. So because you purchase these shares or stocks to sell them, the entire amount, including all of the extra dividends that you might have received throughout the year, you will have to give zakah on the entire amount, the value of that thing today. So however much you purchased it for, including all of the dividends and everything, the value of it today is what you will be paying zakat upon. And then the other situation, because it wasn't really for resale, it was just for a profit, you will be giving zakat. The zakat will be levied upon the dividends that you are receiving and the percentage of zakah-able assets of the business. So meaning, if the business that you're investing within, say that business, 60% of the business is zakatable. The other 40% of that business is just like machinery. It's just the building, the property, things that are not zakatable. Then say the business, the stock that you're investing within is a $300,000 company, and the 300 out of the $300,000, 40,000 is just like machinery and stuff that are not zakatable, and only 60,000 is. Then you will take the dividend and 60% of that zakatable assets, and you will give zakat upon that. Any questions that you have regarding this, just mention it in the comments, inshallah, and we will go over those questions, inshallah. And I will cover that towards the end, inshallah. Business assets, fixed assets, machinery, buildings, furniture, etc. These are things within your business that are not zakatable. We already mentioned, because the intention is not for resale. Current assets, the stocks and trade, cash, receivables, things that you will be receiving from your customers. These are things that you have to give zakah upon. You will pay zakah on the percentage. We just mentioned the scenario of this, of the current assets in ratio to his share of the value. It gives a very quick example. For example, Zayd purchased £1,000, or we'll say $1,000 worth of shares in so and so company. 40% of the company's assets cover machinery, furniture, cars for use, etc. So because these are not zakatable assets, you don't give zakat on those things. Only 60% of the company's assets are in the form of stock and trade, cash, receivables, gold, etc. So zakat will be on 60% of the 1,000 that Zayd had purchased. So if Zayd had purchased $1,000 worth of stocks or shares from the company, you will not give zakat on the entire $1,000 of your investment. You will only give it upon 60% of your investment, because 40% is not zakatable anyways. So you will only give it on $600. 2.5% of the $600 you will be giving zakat upon, in addition to whatever dividends that you're receiving. And the question might arise that, how do I know this? How do I know that what the company uses their stuff for? What interest is involved within it? What is their profit and loss? Usually the annual report that they send out, which is widely available, usually if you look through that, if you just review that, the balance sheet, profit and loss account, you will be able to know the proportions and the percentage for these things. Now, pension schemes, 401ks as well. Now there's money purchase and personal pension schemes, and then there's the final salary pension schemes. So one is the voluntary pensions, and one is the involuntary actions. Involuntary is the type of, you could say, the non-vested 401ks, when you don't really have a choice. The business tells you that we are taking out 5% of your salary every month, and we are putting it into an investment for you, and you will be able to take it out once you retire. And many times they mention that if you leave before that, if you don't retire, we will just keep it. We might not even give it to you. So in that situation, when you don't even have a choice, and they're basically investing it for you, it's as if you never became the owner of it. Remember, in zakat, you have to be the owner. You give zakat upon something that you have access to, and it's in your ownership. So if it's something that the company is saying you can't even withdraw it, you will not even receive it till like 10 years later, when you retire, 20 years later, then it's as if it's never yours. It's as if the company never gave it to you. It's still theirs. And at the end, by your retirement, it's as if they're giving you a gift for working for them. So in that situation, this is an investment where the employee usually has a discretion. In that situation, there's the no zakah. But the second situation where it's voluntary, it's a vested 401k. You have a discretionary loan with discretionary role within it. You have a choice. You can even withdraw it if you want. So that's an investment where the employee usually has a discretionary role in pension contributions. You many times they even ask you how much percentage do you want us to invest for you. So in this situation, you do have to give zakah upon it, and the rules related to zakah on your investments will apply. Now, another thing I want to mention about this is a lot of people ask, however, how about if I was to withdraw this amount? Say my 401k is really on the rise. I have, $10,000 within my 401k, or even more, much more. If I was to deduct that, if I was to withdraw that today, because if I'm withdrawing it early, there will be a penalty and there will be tax, like huge taxes levied upon it. So I will be missing out on a lot. Say if it was $10,000, when the taxes and penalty is incurred upon it, I might only get back $5,000. So does that mean I will only give zakah upon $5,000? So the answer to that, there are scholars that mention that you will only give it on $5,000, but many scholars do mention that if you think about it, what's happening? If you don't withdraw it, what's happening? That same $5,000, that entire $10,000 is being reinvested for the next year, and then the year after that. So it doesn't really make sense for you to not give zakat on those, for you to deduct those penalties and those taxes from your 401k. Yeah, it might make it a little cheaper for you, but if you look at it, it doesn't really seem like it's a just practice, and if possible, you should just give your amount on the entire amount. Yes, unless if it's really there is a reason for you not to do so, you really are in a tough and difficult position, and you really can't do it, and you go with that more lenient approach, then that's a different situation. But many scholars, they mention that try to just cover the entire 401k unless you know you are actually withdrawing it. And then the final salary pension schemes are the ones that I mentioned that you don't have a choice. It's involuntary, it's non-vested 401k or IRAs. Then this pension contributions are not subject to zakah. You will not give zakat upon those things. Only after retirement, after you receive the money, you will have to give zakat upon it. And why do you not give zakah on the previous years? It's because it's as if it was never your ownership. It's as if you were not the one investing it. The company was investing it for you. So if you never had access to it 20 years later, why would you give zakah for something that was never yours for 20 years? As in the first situation, the first scenario, a person who had a choice, then you will be giving zakah for each and every year. And if you hadn't given zakah on your previous 5 years of 401ks, you can still give it today. Remember, zakat is something you can give it early and you can give it late as well. It shouldn't be delayed, but if you hadn't given zakah for the past 5 years, you can give it today. You will just have to calculate the Ramadan of 1440 last year, how much money did I have? Ramadan of 1439, 2 years ago, how much did I have? And according to that, how much was in my account for my 401k, and so on and so forth, and you will calculate it according to that. Next, agriculture produce. Very briefly, I will just go over it because most of us probably don't do farming. If you do, mainly you give it upon 1/10 of your crops, your fruits, vegetables, everything that you have purchased, all of your crops that you have, you basically just give 1/10 of it. And trees, grass, weeds, these type of things, machinery and these type of things are not considered your crops, so you don't give it on that. And if you were actually using sprinklers and stuff, they mentioned that you will only have to give 1/5 of it, or 5% of it. And if it was actually just completely natural, your entire produce was just by rainfall, then you give 10%. If you were doing both, then whatever was more frequent. When is ushur paid? Ushur is actually something that the condition of 1 year passing is not necessary for that. As long as whenever you harvest your crops, it could be 2-3 times a year. That's usually just once a year. That's when you will give your ushur payment. So most of us won't have to deal with this. So if you really do deal with it, you can always email us, or you can even always text us on the Al-Firdaus number, which will be posted or should already be posted on the chat. Now the other thing is, can you give the amount in cash, the value of cash of these crops as well? Yes, you could do that as well. On backgrounds, whatever your growing within your backgrounds. This is very common that in your backyard you might have tomatoes and stuff. So it's not upon that. It's actually when you actually have a business of this sort, or this is what you're doing, especially back at home. Then animals and livestock. This it's a very complicated zakat ruling for animals and livestock. If you have camels, cattle, sheep, goats, even horses, these are things that you have to give zakat upon. How much do you give upon? It's very complicated. So if you really deal with these things, you can inshallah just message us or email us even at office@alfirdosfnd.org, and inshallah we can answer those for you as well. Now, the intention aspect, we had already mentioned this. This should have been in the beginning of the slides. That it's very important that you give your zakah. One should not delay in paying zakah. Try to give it as soon as possible. As soon as the 1 year hits, try to get it done as soon as possible. I know in this year it might be a little difficult because of the situation we are in, the current crisis that we are in. So if you are paying it online or something, just keep in mind that there are usually credit card fees. So if you are giving your zakah, say your zakah ended up being $200, then do try to include the 2.5% or 3%, however much fees are, on top of the $200 that you're giving. Usually there's an option as well. I want to pay the transfer fees or the credit card fees. Then do click that, because or else your zakah will not be complete without it. Same thing with sadaqatul fitr. When Eid is coming, when you're going to give your sadaqatul fitr, if you're doing an online payment, make sure to include that extra 2.5% or that 3%, 2.2%, whatever it is, on top of that as well. And the intention we mentioned, when does the intention have to be made? One, there's 2-3 different scenarios. You can either make it when you're separating your zakah. You counted your entire zakah, your zakat amount was just $250, then you separate the $250. You know this is your zakah. Now you're thinking, oh, you know, when the conditions get better, I will give this zakat to someone. So for you, as long as you're separating the zakat amount, at that time you need to make the intention. Even if you're just separating and you know this is for zakat, that's considered an intention as well. It doesn't have to be verbal. So that's one thing you could do when you're separating it. The other thing is, you could ask, you can just make the intention, the person, if you're making someone an agent, that I make you the agent, you can discharge my zakat for me. And also when you're paying on behalf of your spouse or children, I already mentioned this before, that it is permissible. You could discharge someone else's zakah, but you need their approval. You need to at least ask their permission, and they have to be aware that their zakah is being given. Tamliq, one of the most important things, this should also have been in one of the first few slides, that when zakah is given, when we give our zakat to someone, make sure that one of the most common requirements is you have to make someone the owner of it. What does it mean by making someone an owner of the zakah? They have to have complete control over it. Basically, it can't be that, hey, I know you're suffering, I know you're a poor person, what do you want? Are you suffering from this? Do you have debts over here? I'll pay the debt for you. I'll just give the bills that you have to give from you. No, that's not how it should be done. You should make them the owner first, and then you should get it done. Yes, if they tell you that I make you my agent, that now I have the money, you can give it on my behalf, that's a separate situation. Now, this is very important to understand, because there are many things today that we do, but we don't realize that our zakah is not counting. So zakah will only be considered to be paid when tamliq is found, meaning you completely transferred your wealth from your hands, from your possession, to a different party. The best is if this is one of your relatives, and we will mention which one of your relatives it is. If you have a brother, if you have an aunt or uncle that's zakah eligible, they really need zakah, it's best that you give it to them. And it will only become theirs if you actually give it to them, or you purchase something and actually give it to them. Even if it's not the cash amount, even if you purchase something and give it to them, the value is there. As long as you made them the owner, then it's fine. Tamliq will only take place with the following conditions. The person transferring must be the zakah payer or his or her agent. So either I'm the one that's transferring it to someone else, or it has to be my agent. Someone else is transferring it for me. Okay, so I'm using one of the organizations or something, and you have to keep in mind that many of these organizations, if they're doing it for you on your behalf, many of them, they actually have a percentage that they take from the zakah funds, and usually you will find this on their websites, or if you ask them, they'll tell you that 15% of our zakah funds we use as an income for our people, for our employees. So if that is the case, then you will have to add that 15% as well. You have to give extra, or else your zakah will not be fulfilled. You can't use the ayah in the Quran, وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا, that those people that have been deputed from the government, the Islamic government, to go collect zakah. Because if you were deputed from the Islamic government, nowadays, especially in America, we're not even an Islamic government. So even if that was the case, then the zakah collectors used to be a person that was taking the zakah on behalf of the poor people. Today, the organizations are taking money on behalf of the rich people, on behalf of the wealthy, the people who zakah is necessary upon, and they're just fulfilling your duty by giving it to a poor person. So you need to understand this as well. The transfer must not be remuneration or a consideration for services. You can't give zakah and be like, I'll give you $500, but you have to, mow my lawn for me. No, you can't do. You can't do in exchange of any service. You can't say that one of my employees, I know he needs zakat anyways. So this month I have to give a lot of zakat. This $3,000 that I'm giving to my employee this month, I'll just give him my zakat money. So you can't do that because that's a service that he gave you. And the transferee, meaning the recipient, must acquire possession and become owner of the funds unconditionally. You can't put any conditions. They have to become the owner. Like I said, you can't just be like, I'll pay the bills for you. I'll do this for you because I don't trust you. If I give it to you, you'll probably just use it on gambling or smoking, something like that. Yes, if you know most likely they will use on sinful acts, then it is desirable that you give it to someone else. But if you are going to give zakah, for it to be fulfilled, you have to make them the owner. The recipients that are mentioned in the Quran, the poor and needy, للفقراء إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين, the 10th Surah Tawbah, the 10th juz, it's within the surah. You give it to the poor and needy. The fuqara is referring to those people that have less than the nisab amount. So they are poor, but they have less than the nisab amount. They have some money, but it's less than the nisab amount. Now it's important to understand this. You might look at your neighbor, and your neighbor might tell you, I'm eligible to be a recipient of zakah. Now you can't just start judging them that I don't believe you. You have a car. You have you work. You have a healthy job. You have a day-to-day job as well. You have a car. You have a house. How could you be zakah eligible? Keep in mind that properties, houses, your furniture, your clothes, all of these things are not zakatable. So when you're looking for the zakah price, you're not even calculating that. Your car as well. You don't look at the zakah price. The only thing you look at zakah price, we already mentioned this, the gold, silver, and the cash amount that you have on hand. Those are the things, and the receivables, those are the things that you look at the zakah amount for. And if that zakah amount is less than the nisab threshold, the quantum, and as I mentioned, if you're going by silver, which is anfa'al al-fuqara, which is better and more productive for the needy, it's more beneficial for them, then you go by $319. And as long as you had more than that, then if you had less than that, that means you're a person that's in need of zakah. It could be a person that has a paycheck of $2,000, $500, or every week they're getting $500 weekly. But every week, because that's the only income they're getting, that's the only amount they have in groceries and giving their rental payments. It's going under $319 every single month or every single week. So it's possible that they could still be an eligible zakah recipient. Or miskin is a person who has no zakah at all. A debtor, remember, this is a person who, this was usually in the times before when a person would barely have anything, and this was only a time when the person in debt would only have that amount of debt, which usually would be paid off right away. So nowadays, this is usually not the case. A person who's in debt usually is in huge debts, and and keep in mind, this is a person that's in debt that doesn't have extra needs beyond their basic necessities. So in order for you to be eligible for zakah, for you to be a recipient of zakah, then if you have a vacation home or if you have a property and land that's worth $100,000, you will have to include that as well. Whereas when you have to give zakah, you don't include those things. Something we had mentioned in the beginning, the part of nisab, that was nisab hinman zakah, and one was the nisab of wujub zakah. Then travelers, this doesn't really apply today because we have access to credit cards and ATMs. A person fi sabilillah, mu'allafat al-qulub, this is also scholars mentioned, doesn't apply today to reconcile the hearts of non-Muslims. Zakah collectors, I also mentioned, we don't have Islamic governments today that deputate these people. So it's usually just the first 2-3 categories that we're looking at. And the final slide, inshallah, then we will complete with this. Those who cannot take zakah the following cannot receive zakah: general welfare projects. And don't just look at this slide and assume we'll know what it means. There is detail to each one, so just listen to the explanation as well. General welfare projects, this is referring to those types of welfare where you're building a well, you're building a masjid for others, you're collecting funds for these type of things. Because these type of actions, what's happening is, yes, it is helping people. It might even help the poor people if you build a well in a country that's poor. But what's happening? Who's being made the owner? Where is the tamlik taking place? You understand? There is no possession taking place from the poor people. So there's not a single person or even a few people that are being made the owner of that. So that's why general welfare projects, when you're doing this, even if you by yourself, you go and build a well, because you're not making someone the actual the owner of it, that's why that will not count. So general welfare projects that do just those type of actions, I'm not saying don't support them. Yes, support them, but with your sadaqah, not with your zakah. Your sadaqah, just daily donations or monthly donations that you give. It's the month of Ramadan. Yes, help out these organizations. It's more than recommended to do so. Allah will give you so much, inshallah. But don't use it from your zakah money, okay? Unless they're actually fulfilling zakah for you and you're adding out the extra fees as well. Hospitals, because no one is being made the owner. Or even if you're constructing and building a hospital, because no one is being made the owner. Madrasas, this is important to understand about madrasas. In terms of just like madrasa daily expenses of the madrasa, meaning the expenses of the madrasa, their electricity bills, their light bills, their water bills, these type of things, electricity bills and so on and so forth, or their construction project, their expansion projects, to give money for that from your zakah will not be fine. But many madrasas nowadays have students that are zakah eligible. Keep in mind that if there is a student who has become an adult, remember in Islam, what is an adult? Not 18 years old, not 21 years old, not 25 years old. An adult is as soon as you hit puberty. As soon as you had your first wet dream or your first menstruation period, now you're considered to be zakat eligible. So if you're a person, that doesn't have enough money, you're a zakat eligible student. There's many zakat eligible students in madrasas, and you're giving your zakat to the madrasa for that intention to be given to those people, and the madrasa takes it for you on your behalf and gives it to them. Then that will be fine for that situation. But you have to know what you're doing. Then construction projects for mosques, hospitals, any construction projects, there's no tamlik that is being taken place. The descendants of the Banu Hashim, because they are Sayyids, you're not allowed to give them zakah. So this is the Banu Abbas, Haris, Ja'far, Aqil, radiallahu ta'ala anhum. All of these people, it's mentioned clearly in the books of fiqh, Babu man yajuzu, dafa sadaqat ilayhi wa man la yajuz. All of these people, you will not be able to give zakah to these people. Then we come to a rich person. A rich person doesn't mean, okay, this person is loaded. Rich person, once again, it's referring to a person who has the amount of nisab. If a person has the amount of nisab, you cannot give zakah to them. Okay, so a person who has the amount of nisab, even if it's just above $319, it could be $400 if you're going according to silver standards. Or if you're going according to gold standards, that's almost above $4,800. So according to that, you cannot give zakah. If you give it to them, your zakah will not count. Your wife or your husband, you are not allowed to give your zakat to your wife or your husband. There are hilas, there are different things that have been mentioned within the books of fiqh, that if you try to say, 6 months throughout the year I give, or 8 months throughout the year I give all of my wealth to my wife, and everything I have, I'm such a good person, my wife, I gift everything to you, so I'm hitting rock bottom, I have $0, my bank balance, everything, I'm giving everything to you, and then 4 or 5 months later she gives it back to me. So now for both individuals, they're hitting rock bottom. They're not hitting that 1 year necessity requirement condition for you to give zakah. That is not permissible within Islam. You will not be allowed to do this. And if you do that in today's time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but they might even run away with your wealth. And then you can't do anything with it. Wallahu a'lam. So that's another thing that you're not allowed to do. Now, one's parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, the best way to understand this is wain ala, all of your ascendants. When it comes to your ascendants directly, you're not allowed to give zakat to them. So your mother and father, can you give zakat to them? Nope. Can you give it to your grandparents and grandparents? Maternal and paternal. Remember that. You're not allowed to give to them. Parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great, however many you have alive, you're not allowed to give zakah to them, even if they're eligible for zakah. And then, وَإِن سَفُلَتْ, whoever is below you, whoever is your descendants, so your very children, your son and your daughter, they could be zakah eligible, you could be rich, but you cannot give zakah to them. Your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, but that's it. Look at how many people you are allowed to give it to. You're not allowed to give it to ascendants and descendants, but anyone that is in the same line as you, meaning your brother, your sister. If your brother and your sister is fine, then your mother's brother and sister, your father's brother and sister, your son's brother and sister, your daughter's brothers and sisters, okay, which is actually your son too. So meaning if it's step. So these type of things, all of these things, you will be allowed to give zakah to those brothers and sisters because they're not ascendants and descendants. So your aunts, uncles, your brothers and sisters. In fact, not only will you be allowed to give it to them, it is the most encouraged to give it to these people. If you have these people within your families that are eligible for zakah. Why is it encouraged? Because you're doing two birds with one stone. You're giving, you're offsetting the zakah, and at the same time, what are you doing? You are doing salah rahmi. You're joining kinships. A non-Muslim, you cannot give it to them. It has to be a Muslim at least who you give your zakah to. And employees, as a remuneration, you cannot give zakah as a salary. You cannot use that as an excuse and give your zakah. We already mentioned that. And finally, prisoners, you cannot give it to that as well. So inshallah, we will conclude with this. We'll just go over some questions or scenarios that you might have. If you have any questions, you can post it inshallah. There's a question, can we give zakah in advance for next year to help someone out this year? Yes, the answer is yes. You can give zakah in advance. You're always allowed to give zakah in advance, but just keep one thing in mind. If you are going to give zakah in advance, so say my zakah day was the 1st of Ramadan, so I decide, I also want to give the 1st of Ramadan for 1442 for next year. So I can calculate my zakah, however much I think it will be. Say I take out $3,000 for zakah and I gave it to someone because they needed help. That's fine. And they were zakat eligible. But what I will have to do is next year zakah, just keep this figure in mind. How much did I give? And then next year, calculate your zakah and see if you give the correct amount. So if you give more, then alhamdulillah, keep it like that. Don't take it back. This was your relationship with Allah. Allah will reward you. Whenever you give more, that's always good. But if it was less, say my actual zakah should have been 3,700 instead of 3,500. So I will just give $200 extra. So you can always give zakah early, and if you hadn't given zakah, you can give it late as well. It's not recommended, it's not encouraged. You can give it late, but the main thing to understand, inshallah, I will also go over sadaqatul fitr and Eid as well. But you're allowed to actually give zakah later, but you have to make sure it's a responsibility upon you that however many years of zakah you haven't fulfilled, sit down, get it done. You can still do it. Make sure, keep that in mind. It's not that I didn't do it, so now I'm so sinful and now I can't change that. No, it's something even before you die, you can do it. Even if it's 2 days, 3 days before you died, and you did it. Obviously, you weren't on your deathbed and stuff. It has to be many things before that, but try to get those things done before these things continue. Something else, a question that was asked. Yes, sadaqatul fitr. So sadaqatul fitr, as the day of Eid is coming, keep in mind that the rules of zakah and the rules of sadaqatul fitr are a little different. So zakah, one of the conditions that we mentioned, that the child has to be, you have to be an adult to give zakah, and you have to have that amount of wealth for an entire year, all of those things. Now sadaqatul fitr is not like that. If you have a son that's 7 years old, and he, mashallah, he is so cute and so handsome, mashallah, that everyone is always giving him money, and his bank account is now at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Okay, sadaqatul fitr is necessary upon that child as well. However many children that you have, you are responsible as a parent for them. Okay, and if it's a child that has enough money, you can even take it from that wealth as well. But sadaqatul fitr, even if they just got the money a day before Eid, you will still have to give sadaqatul fitr upon that amount. Within our area, within the Bridgeview area, it's around $7. If you give more, it's always better. Remember, $7 that amount that is usually mentioned, $5 to $7, is usually the minimum, and then you will see higher amounts. Some masjid they will post $10, and then you can give the highest amount that is equivalent to the amount of dates, which is usually even higher than that, $25, $35. So the more you give is always better, but make sure you're giving for everyone within the household. For Sadaqah al-Fitr, you don't need the permission. You can just give it. You can count all the heads within your house, however many sons you have, the spouse, and you can say, I'm giving the zakat for you. You don't have to give it. It's upon me. So that's the case of Sadaqah al-Fitr. It's better to be given before the day of Eid, so it can help people, but it can still be given on the day of Eid. And many people think that the Eid Salah doesn't even count if you don't give it. But no, even after Eid Salah, you can still give it. In fact, you should still give it after the Eid Salah if you haven't given it. And make sure you give it before it's too late. So it's not a lot. It's just $7 to $10 per person. And it's always better to give more so you can help people. And as I mentioned, just keep those fees in mind if you're going to be using any online platforms, inshallah. Inshallah, if there's any other questions, you can ask. Otherwise, inshallah, we will conclude. The other thing I want to mention is, don't forget that at 5 o'clock, we will be having our Qiraat Recitations Echoes of Bliss series, which is a very unique Qiraat. If you haven't listened to it yet, please do listen to it. It's a very unique method of reciting the Quran with long breaths, almost a minute long breaths, which is really a skill and it's not easy to do. And alhamdulillah, it's being done only for the last 10 days of Ramadan. Mufti Abdulmannan is conducting it, and alhamdulillah, he's actually called by many individuals to actually come and actually recite qira'ah for them, and they wished for him to actually recite for these different occasions. And alhamdulillah, we're getting this for free in the month of Ramadan. So please do try to benefit. I don't know if it will be removed after the month of Ramadan, but it is a special series for the month of Ramadan. Do try to benefit. It is a different surah and different unique maqamat that are being recited every day. So inshallah, do try to benefit at 5 o'clock daily today as well, inshallah. And inshallah also we will be having the Khatm al-Quran, rekindling the Khatam vibe, inshallah, on Thursday when we will be having our Khatam, the 29th night. So inshallah we will be broadcasting and streaming, inshallah, the last few rakahs if possible, and hopefully the dua as well, inshallah. So you can join in for that as well. It will be around 10:30 inshallah on Thursday when we complete the Quran, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. I know it's difficult. Zakah is the fact that you stayed till the end for zakah is it's really praiseworthy. You should really, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really reward you. That means that you're taking your zakah obligation seriously. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for that. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.